I'm sure my parents would spend that on the snack. Umbrella style? Just like a tripod, wheel on it. Anything it sends off alarms on your
That's promotion for the website.
I generally don't, but I do have a lot of sugar.
I stopped buying. So I tried to do
This is mingle people and find out what they need. And he ministered to the needs. Then he said, follow me.
So be aware, check the latest update.
Where is person? Oh yeah. I have a daughter, Thailand name.
studying in Thailand.
Yeah. Five papers, all 5 papers, there are 3 questions on 5
Yeah, to see where
My whole thing about Pakistan India thing is
Good, long time to see.
I was there when they had the war and stuff. Actually, when the war.
They have a lot of food, I checked.
But I didn't know all this war situation was going on.
that's why like 300. It's like very popular now. In the indoor?
Outdoor. They have heated courts. It's very different.
I know it's a ski sport.
There by aging up. I'll get you some white rice. Yeah, let's put my
Take my picture, my friend. I'm a most unwanted person. Okay?
He's asking everyone to favorite color. Sorry, I'm sorry to reach over. Wait, your dad? Oh,
Thank you.
You are welcome. How's everything so far? Good? Good.
Okay, sir, I think that you need to go and eat.
Young man, how's everything?
everyone who are still waiting in line for food, but I would like to go ahead and get some people to come up and say a few words about my mom. So I'm going to start out with my cousin, Rajakumari Akka. She's my first cousin who has come from Washington, D.C. She'll say a few words about my mom.
Okay. I'm going to talk about some of my earliest memories of Jane Chitti. Being one of the older kids in the family, we had the privilege of knowing her longer and had more fun and experiences with her. My first memory of her, which I have not forgotten, is when my grandmother died and her casket was placed and all the relatives, the family members were standing on one end and I was on the other end. I think I must have been Jagan was just born and I must have been about 6-7 years old, but I still remember this. So all the family members were crying loud, but Jane Chitti, having given birth to a child, a boy after 3 girls, I think, two girls, she was sobbing silently. She stood in a corner and she sobbed silently. That memory has not left my mind at all. And the second memory is, Jagan has already mentioned, she was our teacher. To him, you were in first grade, you said. I don't know what grade I was, but I remember her as a teacher, and I still remember where she sat and taught us. That was another memory. And then, after we grew up, this was, before I turned 10. But when I was in my teens, before then we had visited them in their colony house. If you all remember, there was a nice balcony and we used to all stand on the balcony and there would be street vendors going up and down the street and we would call out to them and they would stop and look up and we would hide. So that was one memory we had in their house. And then the Mutwal house. And now the interesting part is the Hendala house. Once I visited them, and suddenly there was a big storm brewing. I was wondering what's happening. And it was the Jiva storm. I mean, she was in the dining room, I was in the middle by the doorway, and Chitti was in the kitchen. And as soon as the storm started, Chitti, I was wondering what she was going to do. Who said she would say, Edwy? Andrea said that. No, she didn't say that. She was singing. The more she sang, Jiva doesn't remember. At least she's smiling, so I'm not in trouble. The more she sang, the more strong the storm was. Finally, I don't know what stopped the storm, whether her singing or by herself, but everything was calm and quiet. That's how she handled the storm that Jiva brought. So I was, she doesn't remember, I remember. I was wondering, how do we handle problems like that? The Bible tells us of one king who went to war with singing, and she practiced that. So that's one good example for us to follow. Not to get angry, but sing and pray maybe. And then, coming to later years, we were in and out of the house, having gone out of the house for higher studies. We didn't have much interaction with her. But then after they came to Canada, we were here in the US. They used to come and visit us quite often, remember? Sometimes they used to travel by bus, sometimes drove all the way from Vancouver to Washington, D.C.
And my mother had just got COVID at that time. But you were concerned enough to call and talk with her. You are a very caring person. You gave her a beautiful picture you had colored, and you wanted to be sure Janet got her a nice frame, and then Amma loved it. I was trying to look for it with me moving. I couldn't find the picture right now. Chitti, you are a very pleasant, cheerful, and fun person to be with. You had a hearty laughter and a bright smile all the time. Devdas stayed with you 2 or 3 times when you were in Canada. I especially remember one time Devdas and I stayed with you and Chittappa for a week in Vancouver. And Andrea used to live with you at that time, but she had moved, she had gone somewhere. I don't know where she went. But we stayed in that room. You took good care of us and fed us a lot. We went to church with you and met all your friends. And did you have friends? You had many friends there. A little thing what Akka, my sister Merlin, said was, whenever she needed help or whenever she was sick, Chitti and Chittappa came and stayed with them. And Doku also wanted to say, she remembers the time when her daughter Lydia was born. Chitti and Chittappa came and stayed with her. You treated all of your sister's kids as your own kids. And we really love you, Chitti, for that. And whenever Amma and Appa were away in India and we stayed in Divyapatya, you took good care of us. We thank you for it. Before COVID, Janet always brought her mother to Advent Open Door Ministries. She'd bring in the wheelchair, we'd come and sit front in the church, and then we all would have potluck together. And we appreciated Janet for bringing her that time. Whenever I visited her at the Heritage Nursing Home, she was always busy coloring or watching religious programs. And Jiva would be on the bed lying and taking a break. After COVID, I was not able to visit you often, and that was hard. We miss you, Chitti, and we'll meet you on that glorious morning. Thank you.
Okay, next I would like to invite Selviaka to come and speak. I'm sorry, she just started eating.
It's such a delight for me to talk about Jayanatha. If you're wondering who is she, I'm not immediate part of the immediate family, nor the extended family. I'm in between. Okay, and my memories go from childhood days, and then later on. I just want to say, I don't want to give a big talk. I just want to be very specific. When we were little children in Prakasapuram, Gomer Mama, Atta Graceatha, and Jabez Mama and Jayanatha were special people in our community. They lived part of the time in Prakasapuram, then in Sri Lanka. So whenever Jabez Mama and Jayanatha came, or Gomer Mama and Graceatha came, it was like a big festival in our village, because we were looking forward. We were little children, but we were looking forward because Jaslyn will come, and Jaslyn, myself, were childhood friends. We'll play in the school compound. So we were just very close like that. My parents, they were all cousins. So we are related from our grandparents. So Jayanatha, I remember a lot of things about her. Okay, when they had come to Prakasapuram, whenever Jayanatha and Graceatha came, in our church, they had Dorcas sales. They always did special things to enrich our lives in the church. So I remember one Sunday, they were having Dorcas sales. And all the women will make food and take it and they'll sell. And Jayanatha she said, I'm making halwa. And so we were all waiting for Jayanatha's halwa. And she came, she brought something else. She said, alva kattiya poirchi. She said she was making alva and it became hard. Something went wrong with her recipe or whatever. So she was laughing. When she said she was not sad, she was laughing. That's Jayanatha. Any negative thing, she'll make it into a joyous thing by her demeanor, the way that she spoke, the way she related. So I still remember that. Then my uncle, my James uncle, my Periyappa and Jane, Jabez Mama, my Samalanam Perima and Jayanatha were very, very special friends. Whenever Jayanatha and Jabez Mama came to Prakasapuram, they will spend a lot of time in my Periyappa's house, which is behind our house. And I always was at my Periyappa's house. So I used to be always there in their interactions. So one day, I don't know, Jaslyn and all, we were all there. Jagan was a baby. I remember that very well. Jagan, I think 3 years old, maybe 2 or 3 years old. He could talk. And so, we were asking something to Jagan, and Jagan wouldn't say anything. So Jayanatha say, "Availa muthu vechirukanga, adha pesa maatenganga." In time, she said he has some precious stone in his mouth. That's why he's talking. Then immediately Jagan, he thought it was real. So I remember that always stands in my mind. I remember that, and I tell that to Jagan every time when he laughs. Okay, that is when we were childhood, during our childhood days. But when after we grew up. And when we came to Andrews, again our relationship started connecting because Jagan was studying there and Atte and Mama came for my graduation when I did my master's in Andrews. And my husband and myself have taken long road trips from Michigan to Canada to Jayanatha and Jabez Mama. We used to go. So we were very attached. And Atte was such a strong believer in the Adventist church. So if I say anything, she'd say, immediately she'd say, if I had anything negative to say or something concerned to say, Atte will say something positive and change it into a positive thing. She was such a positive person. And okay, that I remember. And when I remember once they were in Berrien Springs, and we were in Michigan, Mama and Atte's wedding anniversary, I found out. And nobody was doing anything. So we made a very special party for her. I remember that she was so happy. So I can go on telling so many personal, experiences with Atte. Jayanatha was such a positive person and she always uplifted Jesus. I used to go and see her whenever I could at the nursing home, and we used to have such a nice conversation. She will always inquire about everybody. She was so loving, and she had a heart that in which the love of Jesus was filled always. She was always kind, never, when you get angry with somebody, she didn't like it, and she always will diffuse that. So she was such a positive person. I remember so many good things about her, and I thank God for her role in my life and the impact she has made in my life, in my husband's life, and my children's life, and all of us. We all praise today because she was such a wonderful gift of God to all of us, and we praise Him. Thank you.
Okay, next I'm going to have John Satkunam come up. He is, him and his wife lived with my parents for for a little while, I think when they were in Canada. So I'm going to have him come up and say a few words. He has to rush to LAX because he's flying back to Canada.
Hello everyone. I was just warned by Jiva not to make a big speech. It was in the year 1987, April 14, I landed in Vancouver. After a 14-hour flight, I was tired. And after filling out my paperwork, I came to the lobby, expecting to see someone there to welcome me. There was no one. So I walked out of the airport and then I saw my cousin on the phone talking to his dad. And I heard him saying, he's not here. And then I looked at him and he looked at me. He was only 12 years old. And I said, where's your mom and dad? He said, no, they didn't come. I came to take you home. So I said, how are we going to get to your place? By bus. Imagine carrying 4 bags. In those days, there were no wheels on your bags. You had to carry them, looking for a bus. And then he took me to a place called Mission. Now, Mission, I haven't heard of this name. And after getting off the bus, he calls his grandma and grandpa, says, can you come and pick me up at the bus stop? It's only about 3 minutes drive from the bus stop to their house. So we went there. They didn't know that I was coming. It was a surprise for them. That was the beginning in Canada, me getting to know Mama and Atta. And their home became my home. I found food at their table. I found work in their factory, candy factory. That was my beginning, my life in Canada. And sometimes I think God puts certain people in your life, on your life journey. And looking today, if you want to know about buildings, you can go to Google or you can go to YouTube and learn all about how to plaster a wall or paint a wall. She knew everything 30 years ago. She knew what the 2x4 means, by 4x8s, all the building materials and paint colors and plastering a wall. And she was a great example. I never heard her preaching a sermon or doing a public prayer or debating in Sabbath school class, but she was a living example. Her life was a sermon. And when my wife came, their home became our home, and they were like our parents. And on the 5th of this year, March 5th, is my wife's birthday. And we were going to visit her to celebrate her birthday when we heard the news. And my wife said, I will never forget Aunt Jane what he has done, because every time she remembers or celebrates her birthday, she will always remember Aunt Jane. So thank you so much, Jivaka, Jocelyn, Ante, all you kids sharing your mom with us, and her love meant so much for us. And it is for what they did in our life that we are living a better life. Thank you so much.
Thank you, John. Thank you for coming. Next, I would like to invite Janaka. Not sure where she's at. Something about Janaka. A couple of days before she passed, my Amma passed, we were all by her bedside, and she wanted to make sure we all rested. So she stayed the whole night with Amma, taking care of her. And she has a special place in my mom's heart.
Thank you for giving me a turn, Janet and Jiva family. I'm going to try not to cry. Sorry for the squeal. Just like Jocelyn. Can you hear? No? Louder? Okay. Just as Jocelyn introduced me a while ago at the church, I do have her name. And the reason is because like Jocelyn explained, my mother and she were best friends. They were like sisters. So when my mother was teaching English in Pragasapuram, they became very, very close. After college, my mother she was sent over there. At that time, they had, thank you, the junior college, and mom taught English. This was before for 5 years in Pragasapuram, before she got married. So she was there for the wedding. And she was there a year later for my birth. So she knew me very well. And when I was so happy when they moved from Canada to Loma Linda, because all I heard as I was growing up in the 50s, from 4 years on till, as a teenager and then in college, all about Jane this, Jane that. She made a big impression on my mom. And my mom missed her a lot, I could tell. She didn't speak so much about her brothers and sisters, but she spoke a lot about Auntie Jane. So I was very much touched when I saw her after they moved from Canada to Jiva's house. So I would go to Jiva's house to visit Uncle and Auntie, and she mentioned so many things about my mother that I didn't know. Sometimes we leave out things and mom had forgotten, but I have to go back to when I was 8 or 9 years old. When my brother passed away, I was 8 and my brother was 7. Because of meningitis and not having antibiotics those days. So after the 3rd day of a high fever, he passed away. And Gomar uncle was so kind. He sent us the money for travel and the boat trip to Sri Lanka. So again, I got to see her, and that's when my mother introduced me to Auntie Jane and said, she's the one I've been talking about. So my mother would walk from Anbaya Tata's house. By the way, Anbaya Tata is my Esratnam grandpa. My mother's father, youngest brother, is Anbaya Tata. So Sauda and Jay Kurianan are my mother's first cousins. That's how we are related. So we were there in Sri Lanka for 2 months, and I saw my mother walking across the rice mill and the paddy field, where they dried the paddy after they would parboiling. She would walk across to go and visit her friend Jane. So it was wonderful to meet her again here in Loma Linda. Some of the things that were so similar, now thinking about it the last few days, what made my mother and Auntie Jane so similar was that they were both prayer warriors. When I asked her to pray for certain people, for my children, for the problems that I was having at work, she never forgot. She sincerely prayed, because she would ask me a few weeks later, so what happened to that we were praying about? Is that all right now? And I would be shocked sometimes because I forgot about that. The problem got solved, but she remembered. So they continue. Now I miss that. I was wondering, what was I going to do? Who was I going to be able to open my heart to? In the last 2 weeks, it's been difficult because I haven't found somebody so close to someone I can really tell how I really feel about different things, because some things are intimate to you and you wonder if this will be passed on. She was able to compartmentalize in boxes about what you told her about yourself. She never discussed that with anybody else. She was sincere and she kept things to herself. She could keep a secret, and that was something great that you're afraid of. whether it would come through the gossip channels. And she was also so generous. When I visited her at Jiva's place, she would raid the fridge for me. I would have lunch. I would have dinners there. She was sweet. She understood when you walked into the door if you were hungry or thirsty or tired. Sometimes she would say, "You've had a very busy 12-hour shift, so I'll just give you a little bit of something and then you can go home to sleep because you have to work first thing in the morning." So she understood you perfectly. The other thing that I also want to mention is Jay, joyful, always. Of course she got serious sometimes. You could tell her, you could say something and some of what you mentioned to her was serious stuff, but she would turn it into something different and make you feel that it wasn't so bad a problem after all. She was very generous. She had all kinds of projects all over India and Sri Lanka, and so did my mother. I learned about sincerity and giving hugs and kisses. I missed my mother's hugs and kisses because a lot of people know Joy Manikam. Joy loved to hug and kiss people, and that's something I received from Jane Auntie, and I miss that. Because it's not the same superficial hugs and kisses. It was so sincere. She knew how to treat people from the heart. And that's something I have to keep learning. I have to remember that what I say and what I do need to coincide, and that it's meant to be a life-changing. Whatever you give advice, or whenever you discuss something to a person, sometimes you feel like you wonder if they're listening. And Jane Auntie was very sincere. She looked you in the eyes, she paid good attention, her mind never wandered, and she looked forward for you to come back. I want to read to the family a poem. I know you're going to miss your mom. My mom passed away in 2003, and I still miss my mother. So you're going to miss, it's been 20 years. I think about my mother more than I think about my late husband or anybody else, because some things never change. Everybody has only one mother, and you have had an extraordinary mother. So this poem is from Angelo Patri. In one sense, there is no death. The life of a soul on earth lasts beyond departure. You will always feel that life touching yours, that voice speaking to you. She lives on in your hearts and in the life of all those who knew her. So remember that. I know it's going to be difficult when all of this is said and done and you all go back home and you have the quiet moments. Let the tears roll, but let all the good memories come, and it will keep you going. God bless you, and my heartfelt condolences to you guys, the family. Thank you, Janet.
I'm going to have a couple of my, I'm going to have my niece, Rita, come say a few words about her party. And then after that, I'm going to have Prakash, my son, to say a few words.
Hello. Is it loud enough? I didn't have the privilege of having, or me and Rajiv, both of us, didn't have the privilege of living very close to Pati and Tata, so we didn't have that opportunity to have lots and lots of experiences with her, but we were lucky enough to have her in our lives probably for 2 to 4 weeks, almost every summer, when she came to visit us in Maryland. And I have just various snapshots in my mind because, as we all know, she leaves an impression. So a couple of the things that come to mind are walking into a room in the morning looking for her, and she's kneeling by the bed for what seems like 3 hours in prayer. It must have been less than that, but it felt that long. I also remember her having piles and piles of beans in the kitchen, the long green beans that you cut the tips off of, and her meticulous cutting of them into a large silver bowl, just meticulous with everything that she did. One of my favorite things I also think about is how, and many people alluded to her eating habits, which were pristine, but during breakfast, as she was getting towards finishing up, she was organizing her thoughts about lunch. And the same for each meal after that, which was just so fun. I was talking to my brother, and he said one of the things he remembers about her, he was very young when he used to spend more time with her than now, but he remembers how she would exercise. She'd be walking around our house, up the stairs, down the stairs, across the basement, exercising using, 1 pound weights, and just those little snapshots of her are just wonderful memories. I guess the most poignant moment for me, and one of the things that she taught me, was when I was 14 years old, and if any of you remember being, or half of you remember being a young woman when you're 14, life seems hard at that time. And I remember, just complaining about something. I don't know, we were in my room, and she kind of quietly confessed to me that she had in her life made mistakes, and that those mistakes were not always forgivable by everyone, but all you could do was pray. And I said, well, sometimes I don't know how to pray. I don't know what to pray for, and sometimes I don't know if I hurt people or if they hurt me. And then she said, you just tell God that you need Him, and then she sang the short chorus for "I Need Thee" every hour, which I keep in my mind. She has brought so much music into our lives. And then, to my mom who sings hymns, and then I sing hymns, and my children sings, they both sing hymns, and I think it's because of that, early morning 6 a.m. awakening in our house of her sitting in the living room singing hymns, wakening everyone as an alarm for morning worship. And I don't have very many experiences, but I do definitely have the privilege that both of my little girls were able to meet her and talk with her, and she made quite an impression on them as well. And she was able to FaceTime with them a couple of times and see them a few times in person. And I see her passed on through her children, my mom. I see some of the things, some of her qualities in me, I hope, at least. And I just want to express what a difference she's made in obviously so many people's lives. But she's thoroughly missed. And thank you so much for joining us in our celebration of her.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks for being here, and thank you for giving me the moment to share with you a little bit. Just listening to everybody, I've been able to kind of gather my own thoughts of just hearing all the memories you guys have had and reminding me of the memories I've had with Pati. And I do think that what I have today and who I am today comes from Pati and Tata and what they sacrificed and what they did to get here as well. But some of the things that really always stuck out to me for Pati was her optimism, her memory. She memorizes everything. The importance of family. For me, when I first got married, she asked me when I was going to have kids. And I said, we just got married. I think we're going to wait a couple of years and enjoy time alone first. and she said, don't be selfish, is what she told me. But Pati is a survivor. She's smart. She cares for others, and she always had that adventurous spirit. And that's what I want for my daughters. And I think Pati's example is something I can pass on to my girls. We've given my second child her middle name. My daughter's middle name is Jane, after Pati. And you can always say that Pati had a sense of humor because she gave me my middle name. If you guys know it, I don't want to repeat it right now. But I've come to embrace it. I put it in all my documents, and people laugh about it still. But I just want to thank you all for being here, reminding me about how great Pati is, and I want to continue that forward with my girls.
I think we want to take a little break to take a family photo. I think we want to be outside because it's better light. So if you want to take a little break to take a photo and then we can come back, we have a few more speeches. So please give us a break because he needs to leave. So
I don't know. You just wanted immediate family and cousins, right? So
okay, immediate family and cousins. Please step outside for a few minutes.
Take just a photo, just for a photo.
why are you carrying a
Okay, those please do hurry and go outside for your photo. Continue. Okay, changing plans. Okay, so we have AJ and Jasmine want to say a few words. They're my brother's daughter and her husband. Next will be Ramesh.
I have a question for all of you. People, how many of you like history? I'm going to be giving a small historical context of Pati's life. Amma used to call me every day. If I don't call her, She will call me at any time. She might call me when I'm at work, or she might call me when I'm sleeping, like early morning, 2 o'clock. So I make sure I call her every day, and every day we used to talk to her so many different things. Then I was wondering, I wanted to ask her about her young life. So I asked her, tell me about your childhood days. Briefly, Amma's mother, or Tangam Party and her 2 sisters, they came to Prakasapuram as orphans. And they studied in Prakasapuram from baby to their teenage years. Amma's father was Balaya Jabamani. He was a successful draftsman in a British sugar factory in Kulasegarapattanam. So somehow these 2 met and they got married with the help of our church leaders. And then in 1929, my mom was born. When the sugar factory management changed from, I believe maybe from the British to the Indians, Sabbath became a problem. My grandfather was expected to work on Saturdays. So my grandfather dropped that work and he left Kulasegarapattanam and went back to Prakasapuram, where they hoped to find some work. But after many months of not being able to find work, the pastors there contacted the pastors in Madurai, which was the closest city, and they found the work for them. So the pastor here gave a letter to my grandfather, and together as a family, Amma, her parents and her sister, they all moved to Madurai. In Madurai, I don't know how many of you know Madurai, but Madurai is an ancient city, ancient Hindu city. So she stayed in a place called Tekkuvasal. The Tekkuvasal means East Gate, West Gate. Their house was close to a church there. So my mom used to go to school in that church. And when she became a teenager, or when she was an early teen, they were taken to American College, which was about maybe 7-8 kilometers, and they were taken by bus. Every day the school bus took them to the college, and in the evening brought them back home. After college, she was married to my dad, S.T. Jabez, on August 20, 1947. So if you know the Indian history, India got its independence on what date? August 15. So 5 days after Indian independence, they got married. When Amma was a little child in Kulasegarapattanam, Kulasegarapattanam was a port city where ships came from the west and from all over the Arabia. It had a seaport, it had a customs office, it had a railway line with several stations, and it had this big sugar factory. Today, it has become a sprawling space center under the direction of Indian Space Research Organization. It has been placed on the world map as one of the few rocket launching facilities in this world. When I was in India last year, I wanted to see Amma's birthplace, Kulasegarapattanam. When I drove through the city, the main bazaar, true to its words, was a bustling town. But to Amma, none of the earthly cities mattered. Her mind was focused on the New Jerusalem, where she wanted to reunite with the families, friends, and all her daughters, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren. Thank you.
Hey everyone. For those of you who don't know me, I'm AJ. I'm the husband of Pati's youngest granddaughter. I first met Pati in 2015 when I went to meet Jasmine's parents. Like any guy going to meet his girlfriend's parents for the very first time, I was nervous. And when I realized that I had to impress not only Jagan Uncle and Prema Auntie, but Pati as well, I was triple nervous. But somehow I was able to earn Pati's stamp of approval. She immediately made me feel like I was part of the family. She would call me sometimes at 3 in the morning, and if I missed her call, she would get very angry, and she will tell me like, "Hey, phone edukala. I've been calling you for a long time." And even when I call her back immediately, she would initially complain about the nursing home food, how tasteless it was and all that, and afterwards we would talk for hours about everything from how mischievous Jagan Uncle was as a kid to her own childhood stories. I'm really gonna miss those 3 a.m. phone calls. Though I only knew Pati for a few years, the impact that she left on me will last a lifetime. Thank you.
There's a popular phrase credited to Mark Twain that says, "Life may not repeat itself, but it rhymes." And I'm just about to turn 40 in a couple of months, so as I approach the top of the hill, I feel mature enough to appreciate this notion. Huh? When I see my kids going to their grandparents' house, I see them playing board games with Pati and Tata, playing Sari and Uno, and I have flashbacks of playing Scrabble with Pati because that was the only board game that she would want to play, usually. She would usually use her X's and Q's to make really, really high-scoring words. I have memories of visiting them in Mission and rummaging through their barn looking for old toys, and I see my kids doing the same at my parents' basement, looking at the toys that me and Jasmine used to play with. I remember when we were at Pati's 90th birthday party, and Michael managed to swipe a slice of swipe some of the frosting off the cake before it was served. And it reminded me of eating candy and treats at Pati and Tata's house at their candy factory, some of which was approved and some of which may have been under the table. When Tata was towards his last days, I remember we were visiting him in the hospital, and me and Melody were going to take Pati home because it was getting late. And our vehicle was kind of difficult to get in and out of because we had a Jeep and it had oversized wheels and it was lifted a little bit, and so she was having some difficulty getting in and out. And we were trying to help her get in, and I remember she refused our help, saying that something to the effect of that she needed to be able to do that on her own when we weren't there. And that's something that I try to remember now as we raise our kids, trying to remember, we've got to teach them in a way that they can be independent on their own. And along those lines, I remember Pati trying to teach me how to make curry before I moved out of my parents' house, before I moved to California. And to this day, I still can't make curry. Pati might be gone, but her memories echo on through us all, and I'm very proud to be a part of her legacy.
Hi everyone, I'm Ramesh. I'm also one of Pati's grandchildren. Like Rita said, I didn't have a lot of early memories, but most of mine came much later in life. I especially remember, like Mommy mentioned, going to pick her up from Canada with Tata and bringing them back. All the adventures we had. And we also flew to Chicago together. I quickly realized she's a very good travel partner because she's tiny and she always takes the middle seat on the airplane. So it was really nice. We also had a lot of Christmases together and Thanksgivings, birthdays. One of the things I remember most is visiting her at the Heritage Gardens. And we would always bring our dog, Rambo. And the way her face lit up, she was happier than seeing us probably. And so every time we came after that, she's like, Rambo, Rambo. And I was like, no, Pati, it's Ramesh. And she's like, no, where's Rambo? So, earlier today, you guys probably heard a lot about Pati's diet and how good it was and how healthy it made her. I remember one instance at Heritage Gardens when Mommy and Jiva Perma were yelling at the staff. They were saying, her blood pressure is over 400. Like, we called so many times to give her a diabetes-type diet. And so we felt bad about the nurses, and then they left. And I turned around, and I was like, Pati, what did you have today for dinner? She's like, I just had some ice cream. And I was like, me and Mommy looked at each other, and we're like, I feel really bad for these nurses here. The last thing, before Pati had difficulty speaking on the phone, I remember having a really long conversation with her. And she was telling me about growing up in India. When she was a little kid, she went to a Catholic school because that was what was close to her. And the headmistress had let her attend the school even though she was Seventh-day Adventist, and she kind of taught me that having an open mind and being compassionate changed her life. So that's something that I try to carry with me throughout my life. Thank you.
Are there any other grandchildren who want to say a few words? Okay, well, right now I would like to give the opportunity for Pastor Roscoe to say a few words. He was the pastor of the church where my mom went to, where my mom attended during her last years of her life. So,
Thank you, Janet. In about 42 years of my pastoral ministry, I haven't seen two sisters equally religious, equally involved. Their main aim is to share the love of Jesus. And that is Janet's mom, Aunt Jane, Mother Jane, and Dharmasili's mom. And they were so inspirational, so wonderful, you know. And once I had a little bit of problem in the church, and Mother called me. Actually, two of them called me at the same time. And they said, Pastor, don't be discouraged. Those people talk, okay? But they're not talking actually. The devil is speaking through them. So don't worry about them. Continue your ministry. You know, I wish I sought their advice and wisdom earlier. But I want to say just one practical thing I want to tell. Once, it was about 7:30 evening, we finished our reading the Sabbath school lesson, and I got a phone call. It's actually FaceTime. I was wondering, who's calling me FaceTime? Right away, I did not recognize Mother Jane. It was her, calling from relaxing on her bed and calling me on FaceTime. And she said, oh, Pastor, you know what? You always visit me at least twice a week. Now this is a month you didn't come. You know, just I want to see your face. That's why I called you. I tell you. And Jane, Mother Jane, she loved me so much. You know. And Janet, thank you for bringing her to church. It was a great delight, and She also liked to take the communion very much. She enjoyed the communion services. She used to call me and said, Pastor, when is the next communion? Even if I give her every 2 weeks or 3 weeks or every other day, she would love to take it. And, this is such a wonderful thing to know them. We still have in our presence elderly pioneers, love Jesus. And their life is nothing but Jesus and nothing but love of Jesus. Whenever I went to nursing home to see Jiva, I used to bump into Jiva there. She used to bring food every day. And we had nice conversation, and oftentimes she used to introduce me to Jiva. Oh, this is Pastor Roscoe. As though she doesn't know that. But, she loved me and loved my family very much. And the other side of the coin, she loved everybody. They never spoke about anybody, bad words or complaining or anything, They appreciated, wherein both sisters appreciated everyone. It's my personal blessing to know them. Yes, I do miss them, but the wealth of knowledge and the blessing they have given to me and to the church, especially to the Open Door Church, it is commendable. It is nothing but God's mercy and God's blessings. I wish all the family members, both sides, may the grace of God rest with you and protect you and keep on blessing you. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much for those kind words. Anyone else want to have a few minutes to say something? Okay, I think the repast is officially over. I really, really do appreciate each one of you taking the time to come in a weekday, in the rain, and spending the time with us to celebrate our mom's life. Thank you so much, and have a safe journey back home. Thank you.
Thank you for the company.